Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
How are we, Sheikh Abu Ibrahim?
Sheikh Hassan, very well. How are you?
Good, mashallah. Episode 3,
We got here.
alhamdulillah. I think a lot of people were doubting it. You probably, more than me.
I didn't think I was going to make it to episode 3.
Busy man,
Yeah,
busy for nothing,
alhamdulillah. Yeah, busy for nothing.
as they say. Thank you for not the support, but the views and the comments and the likes, mashallah. It shows that the message is getting out there. Not that we're judging its success on likes and numbers and whatnot, but alhamdulillah, we've had good feedback.
Have you been buying views?
No,
Have you been buying likes?
I've been buying subscribers.
Oh, I see. That makes sense.
But no, alhamdulillah, it's been good. I'm glad you're enjoying it and taking some sort of benefit from it. That makes it worth the effort for us. So alhamdulillah. So how are you today?
Good. Alhamdulillah. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad.
Good.
Where have you just come from?
We were just relaxing, chilling out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
How
look
about
like
you?
you're in some sports attire.
No. I was to be honest with you, I was just relaxing, and you turned up, and here we are, unscripted again.
Very
So,
unscripted.
but I think that's good.
Yeah.
To be honest, I like the whole unscripted thing and just take it as it comes.
I think you have to be comfortable with the other person for it to be unscripted, totally unscripted.
Yeah, but I think that it also keeps it genuine.
Mm.
You know, I think a lot of people, when they have a podcast and stuff, it's like a script, and they're just going through it. And I'm not good at that kind of act, to be honest with you. So
Act?
I think it's an act, isn't it? You know, like you're pretending that these questions are surprising, or pretending that these questions are out of the blue, whatever, when you've already know what's going to be discussed. I don't see the point in that. I don't think it's genuine.
Okay, no problem. Inshallah. Bismillah. So let's start episode 3. I've already started it, but let's get into the meat of it. A few comments that I read were asking about business and halal hustles, how to make money. So let's just start with, if somebody came up to you now and said, I want to make money, maybe he's young, 17, 18 years old, got his life ahead of him, what would you advise?
Look, the first thing, I don't think there's a golden rule to making money. People make money in so many different ways. As long as the money that you're making is halal. That's, for me, that's the main thing, okay? Is that the money that you're making is halal. You know, and I know, had we been people who were engaging in mortgages and car finance and stuff like that, it seems on the outside that there's a lot of opportunity to make money, but it always comes back to bite you in the backside. It always ruins your life eventually. Me and you have always said that, look, had mortgages and this kind of stuff been halal, we would have had 100 houses each. And it, like,
Bit of an
oh
exaggeration.
no, I'm not exaggerating. I would have had 100 houses. I would have been driving a Chiron, whatever. But the point is, a little bit of halal is way better than a lot of haram. And me and you know that we've seen people in our lives who have a lot of money and who have engaged in haram, and it always is visible in their family life. It's always visible in their health. It's always visible in just the lack of barakah that you see. A person can be so wealthy and yet he's not happy, yet he doesn't have peace in his life, yet he doesn't have tranquility in his life. So for me, if somebody was to come to me and say, listen, I'm 17, 18 years old, I want to make money, my first advice to that person is, do your best to keep it halal, and don't be tempted in by sort of the glitz and the glamour of haram. It's haram for a reason. Allah has made it haram for a reason. So that's the first thing. What would you say? Let's go point by point.
Yeah. I would say, if we take it, you've looked at it from a religious angle. I think that is the first port of call is, of course, the defining filter, or anything that we should define our lives by, is Islam. So we have to keep it within the boundaries of Islam. So yeah, definitely. There is no easy way to make money. I think that is quite important, that these youngsters now think that everyone is making money and I'm the only one not making money, and they look at Instagram and they look at all these social media platforms and all they see is money everywhere, and it's like, oh, what about me? And they're down in the dumps and they're thinking I'm the only guy who's not making money. But in reality, it is very hard to make money, and those people, like you say, if they're engaged in that and it's haram, then like you say, there's no barakah, no sukoon, or what's the word?
Sakina.
Sakina in Arabic. So yeah, there's no easy way to make money. That's what I would say, and manage your expectations. If you go into business and it doesn't work, don't get down in the dumps. Try again, because all the successful entrepreneurs, for every 10 business, for every sort of 10 startups that they do, maybe 9 fail, but it
Yeah,
only
yeah.
takes that one to take off, and that's the one that makes you the
Well,
money.
well, look, I mean, I'm talking from personal experience. The amount of businesses that I've registered and later closed down, is it's
I
like,
remember you started, I don't know, was it skincare or something? Geogoy?
no, no,
It was
no,
something called Geogoy or something.
no, no, no. That was something I was just messing about with you, Georgiensky. I said I'm gonna start a skincare brand or something,
There's
like
some
a
funny
designer
ones.
clothes
Yeah, I've
brand
heard it
called
all
it
from you, to be fair.
Georgiensky, and,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
was messing with you guys, but you know, I started a company called Dent Daddy, and that was a concept probably 10, 15 years ago. I thought, you know what? Why are the consumers having to go to body shops, car body shops? Why are they having to go to the consumers, to the garages? Why don't we create a central place? We'll get all the garages on board, and what we will do is the customer uploads pictures of their damage to their bodywork, and it goes out to all the body shops who then quote on that, and they tell you why you should. And I invested literally probably £10,000, and it never took off. 10 grand down the drain, didn't take off. There was other things. I wanted to get involved in cars. I registered a business. I thought I'm going to buy cars from auction sites and things like that. Then I realized that again, it is some gray areas, car finance and stuff. If you're selling a £40,000 car, nobody, very rarely, has money to actually drop 40,000. They want to come and they want to pay with finance and stuff like that, and they want you to arrange that finance and stuff. In other words, like you have said, I've started a lot of businesses that have later failed. And the bottom line is, you just got to keep knocking on that door, and like you have said, it just takes one business to work out, and alhamdulillah, you've got a healthy income stream. So what I would also say to a youngster is, stop theorizing about how to make money and actually try to make money. Some of our youth, they go on this course and they want to go on this course and that course, and end up spending like 5 grand on courses, and still they haven't got a clue. You're never gonna know if something's gonna work until you actually do it. Yeah. And like the one of our businesses that we started together, whatever, it just started off as a conversation in the car, and one thing led to the other, and then we put a website up and stuff, and you just never know what's going to work. You never know where Allah has put your barakah or put your rizq, and so you have to actually try. It sounds really obvious, but so many people, they get scared to take that first step. So actually do it. Actually start it, and then see where it takes you.
Yeah. And when people say, do what you love, you hear it all the time. I think that's just fluffy speech. Do what you love, do what you're loving, and eventually it will make you some money.
Do you know why they say that? Because generally, if you love something, you're good at it. And so they are always saying, basically specialize in that thing which you're good at, and eventually you'll find a market. The problem with that is that a lot of people often love a lot of the same things. So you generally get involved in a saturated market, meaning there's lots of people doing it. And one of the things that I was guilty of at the beginning, and but you have to, this is a skill, is knowing when to jump ship, is knowing when to call time on a business idea, is knowing when to say, you know what, this hasn't worked out. Raw, and like you get people, they mortgage their house, or they take a £50,000 loan off the bank or whatever, and they keep plowing this money into this idea which they have convinced themselves is going to work. Clearly it's not working, but they don't have the discipline to say, you know what, hands up, it didn't work, I need to move on. And you see that a lot. You know, even if you ever watch Dragon's Den, you get people coming on, and they're like, the dragons are like, how much have you invested in this? And the person's like, £200,000, and the dragons are holding their heads and they're saying, listen, please don't invest any more money, this isn't going to work, it's not an idea that's going to take off, move on.
Definitely. And I think also it's not always about providing or creating a business. People now need to, if I was to advise someone, I would say invest in yourself. There is a massive need now for skilled workers in a certain field. Not workers, a skill. So let's just say a carpenter, even a floor fitter, an electrician. These types of fields and these types of professions now is a dying breed. And every time you speak to someone on the phone and he turns up at your house, you see him and you're like, this guy's old. He's maybe in his 40s, 50s,
Absolutely.
60s. Because now the youngsters, they don't want to do these types of things. They just want to make YouTube videos, become
They want to do
influencers,
forex or whatever it's called.
Forex and crypto and NFTs and stuff like that. That's got its place.
They want to sit on their backside, not do any hard work, not learn a trade. They want to sit and click and make a few, make a bit of money.
There's so much money though in these professions, in these fields, because there's a lack of skill. There is a lack. It's supply and demand, isn't there?
Listen,
there's a huge demand for an electrician,
a heating or a heating engineer, gas engineer, a plumber, electrician. You can make like literally
money.
£500, £600, £700, £800 a day, £1,000 a day easily.
And it doesn't take
if you're
much.
good.
Yeah.
If you're good, because there's a lot of cowboys.
Yeah.
And cowboys, very quickly, if someone uses a cowboy, they get a bad reputation and people move on. But if you're a good tradesman, you will have a good reputation and people will come to you.
Definitely. And I think that investment in yourself will help you grow as an individual, will give you discipline. And if, say, you've done an electrician course, for an example, we'll just use an electrician now, and you've spent maybe a year, 2 years learning the trade, and then you start and you do work, and you start off slow, maybe start off in your own house. Then you start, I would advise you start a social media page, because there's a lack of these tradesmen,
people don't know where to go.
Young tradesmen using social media.
Yeah.
And who are the ones that need that work doing? It's the young people, because they don't know how to do it.
Absolutely.
So that's where you're going to find your market. So if I was advising, invest in yourself, become a specialist in a trade, and I'm telling you, you can make some serious money.
Yeah, 100%.
Serious money.
And you're offering a product or a service, which is electrician. People need to know that what you're offering that. People need to be aware of what you're offering. So you can be the best electrician in the world, but if nobody knows what you're doing and what you're offering, you will fail. So like you've said, you create a website, you create a social media page, Facebook, Instagram, and what you do is, when you do your jobs, even if the first few jobs you massively underquote, but in order to get that media, in order to get that content, you put it up, you do a great job, you put it up, then you start running an ad campaign, so people on Google and people on Instagram will see what you're doing. I promise you, bi-idhnillah, people will start coming to you.
Yeah. Phone will start ringing.
I remember when one of my businesses, I literally created the most simple website ever, right? And it was done on like Canva. It was all pictures and it was rubbish, but the point was it looked good on a mobile phone. And I ran a YouTube and a Google AdWords campaign, and people started coming. So the point is, you've got to set out your stall. Allah will send the people, and that's the main thing. But you've got to, like Google, Instagram, Facebook. These are the biggest marketplaces in the world where billions of people are looking. You've got to, invest a little bit, learn about it, and then do it. We're past that now, where it's all just through friends and family. You've got to get out there.
Yeah.
But if you do it, inshallah, you will be successful. You will be successful.
Yeah. And you just have to take the plunge, I think. Creating a business is not... people always talk about creating a business, but like you say, it doesn't have to always be a business. It can just
Listen,
be
you can register a
a one
business.
man band and
You
just
can register a private limited company for £20 online, if that, and it will take you. You search for a name and you fill in a few forms, and within half an hour, you've got your own private limited company. You know, it's really that simple. The difficult bit is all the tax and all the corporation tax and all the returns that you have to fill in and stuff like that. But you can worry about that in a year's time. You know, you don't need to do that straight away. So I would all like I said before, like you've said, do it. If you want to, if you know, if you're tentatively taking that step, don't wait. You know, do your research, make sure you know what you're doing. Don't just sell it to yourself and it's amazing to you, but everybody else knows it's rubbish, and you'll just keep throwing money into it. Don't do that. But start with something that you know that you can do, that you can deliver, and just, you know, plod on like that.
Yeah,
And it takes time to grow, right?
yeah, of course.
It takes time to
Yeah,
grow.
yeah, it's going to grow organically, but through word of mouth and through social media, I think is a big medium that's not being used now,
Yeah.
especially by tradesmen. I think there's a big gap in that market. So that's maybe an idea for someone out there. If we knew how to make billions of pounds, then we'd be probably wouldn't be making this podcast.
But
I'd be in the Maldives and Mauritius on one of those water villas.
But look, I think the bottom line is that also remember that your rizq is written.
Yeah,
Whatever so your amount that you're going to take from this world is written. You can run after it as much as you like. You're not going to get a penny more than is already written. And you can run from it and you won't die until what is written for you reaches you. Okay? The reason why I say this is some people, they chase money and money becomes their single objective and goal in this life, and it ruins them. It ruins them. So remember to remain balanced. And also, though, remember that I don't know how much rizq is written for me, and you don't know how much rizq is written for you. No, none of us know how much rizq, although our rizq is written, none of us knows how much rizq that is. So the point is, you've got to do your best to go out and get there. Yeah?
Yeah.
And that's important.
And that, like you say, the thrill is in the chase. So people that are chasing that money, I'll say that with the inverted commas, the thrill is in the chase. People who are chasing that money and then they make it, like you say, that money, we've mentioned this before, but I think that this point now needs to be hammered home that money does not equal happiness. Either it's the thrill of trying to get the money that shaitan diverts your attention from the deen, from Islam, from your salah, from anything. All you care about is money, 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 money. So that's the first way he does it. Then when you've made the money, if Allah has blessed you with the money, and then you think, okay, now what? There's so many people that I've listened to a few podcasts, and they're multi-millionaires. They've just secured this one deal that secured their future, 2, 3, 4, 5 million pounds, and they say, now what? Because they don't have Islam,
Not only that,
because they don't have that purpose now, that they've climbed the ladder, they've made it to the top of the mountain. Now what? As Muslims, we always know why we're here. We know once we've got that money,
our
we
goal
still have
is
a
we have a
purpose
greater
is still
goal,
there.
right? The
Yeah.
goal, our goal, that greater goal is not the money. The greater goal, we're looking beyond that and we're thinking, right, the day of judgment, we want to get into paradise.
That's the purpose
right?
of our life. Yeah.
That's the goal and that's the objective and that's the purpose. So when you climb that hill and you get money and you get to the top, whatever it might be, you still have a goal, you still have an objective, and you still have something to work towards. Like you said, when somebody gets so much money, it's like, and what now? And familiarity, it kills enjoyment. Remember that familiarity kills enjoyment. That man who goes outside and he clicks his car key and he's got a Chiron and he's got a Lamborghini and he's got all of these cars, the first time he'll get a buzz, wow, I'm driving my Chiron, or when he picks it up. The 50th time, it's no longer a buzz. It's like him getting into a Golf GTI. Do you see what I mean? Or it's like a normal person getting into his Mercedes or whatever, because that level of he's familiar with it, you know. And so when a poor person or somebody who's not as well off, when he goes on holiday, he gets more of a buzz than the rich man does from taking his private jet to the Maldives, etc. Because the rich man, for him, he's done it so many times and it's so normal to him. And you see, it's not about what you're doing, it's how it makes you feel. Yeah. So the rich man, even though he's doing all of that, he still has emptiness. The poor person, because he's never experienced this before, it's like you go to a poor man and you give him £100, he's gonna be like, wow. Like you go to a beggar or something, you give him, he's like, wow. You go to a rich man, give him 100. It's not the same. Whereas Islam, it keeps you focused. It makes you understand that there's a bigger picture. And like Allah says, that if you turn away from Allah and the remembrance of Allah, you will have a difficult, depressed, anxious life. Black and white. You know, Allah's telling you that. So to think that you're gonna do it and it's not gonna apply to you is stupidity, right? Is stupidity, because Allah has made it like a universal rule. Man a'rada an dhikri, whoever turns away from my remembrance, فَإِنَّ لَهُ مَعِيشَةً ضَنْكَ. For that person, he's going to have that difficult, depressed life. Bang. Full stop.
Yeah.
And so you got to remember that. So when you're chasing money, you got to remember, as you know, like our dad, he always used to say, and he still does say, too much money is not good. You know, he says that at the end of the day, you're going to eat the same amount of food. At the end of the day, you're going to sleep in the same bed, etc. Too much money is not good. Where you don't know what to do with it, it's not good. You wanna live a life where you've got to work. It gives you that routine. It gives you a sense of, you know, like I've got structure to my day. Not like I've got so much money that I don't know what to do. You know, I can go to the gym and I can. How many times can you do these things before they get boring?
And I think that's why it's quite obvious. But if you look at the non-Muslim celebrities now, there's so many people now going through depression, anxiety. We've already mentioned it. But then on top of that, like you mentioned before, everything has become normal. There's nothing that gives them a buzz. So then what do? They turn to alcohol. They turn to, first it starts off as weed and then cocaine, and then it just goes on and on and on from there. So it just goes to show that again, that this money, it doesn't equal happiness. And then they need that hit and they need that fix. And like you say, then they have no purpose. We, as you know, even if we had billions and billions of pounds, like you say, it would be challenging. There's always challenges, but as Muslims, it keeps your feet on the ground, doesn't it?
Yeah, 100%. And remember that Allah gives the dunya to people who He loves and people who He doesn't love. But Allah only gives guidance to people who He loves. That's a really important principle, that just because Allah has blessed you with money and cars and this, doesn't mean Allah loves you. You have to realize that the gift and the blessing of guidance, praying 5 times a day and doing your best to obey Allah, that you have that in your heart and you have that in your intention, is the biggest gift that you can ever have. So that's why the poorest Muslim is better off and happier and richer than the richest non-Muslim, because he's got that contentment. And remember that, you know, the poorest Muslim who gets up and he prays 2 rakahs of sunnah before Fajr, the Prophet ﷺ, he said it's better than this world and everything in it. So like that guy who wakes up, doesn't matter what his bank account is, doesn't matter if he's got a roof over his head or he hasn't, if he wakes up and he prays those 2 rakahs before Fajr, he has more than Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk and Bill Gates combined. He has, what he has achieved is better than this world and everything in it. The contentment that he feels in his heart, Elon Musk will never feel it unless he becomes a Muslim. And the contentment that he feels in his heart, you know, Jeff Bezos can never feel it. He might take drugs or he might get a fix for a little injection, and then it wears away. But this Muslim, when you do that, it gives you lasting contentment.
Yeah.
Okay, how many incomes or streams of income do you think you need in order to be comfortable?
Comfortable? How do you define comfort?
Being in a situation where your bills are taken care of, you know that at the end of the month, your bills are taken care of and you have a little bit, you know, you can buy things that you like, or, you know, you when you go out, you don't need to necessarily, within reason, you don't need to look at the price of things. You know, you're not sort of not buying branded food and items because you have to, you know, try and save some money, that kind of thing. You're not thinking, right, okay, I've got to fill up my car with petrol. Oh, but okay, I can't put that much in. I've got to, do it half a tank or whatever. So you've always got enough money. How many? Interested to hear what you think. How many streams or sources of income do you think are necessary?
First of all, I think it depends on the actual
Size.
streams of the income.
If you've got
If you've
one
got one, yeah,
river,
if you've got one massive one. But I think it's always good not to have all your eggs in one basket, if possible, because sometimes that one basket requires all of your time and effort.
yeah, yeah,
To maintain that one, as I say, one bird in your hand is better than two in the tree.
yeah,
So I would say you could sit here and if you listen to the mentors online and on YouTube and Instagram and stuff like that, they would say 5, 10. But if we're being realistic about it, I would say if you've got one good source of income, a good source of income, and then you can invest in other businesses, startups. I don't know about stocks and shares and crypto. It's maybe a little bit of a grey area. It's a bit risky. But I would say 2 or 3.
yeah.
It is a realistic answer for the average person, if possible.
See, I would aspire to have 8 or 10 income streams. I think if you get to 8 or 10 healthy income streams, you're a millionaire, bottom line. And I think that is something that, we're not just talking about your average person here who's going to go on and he's going to become an accountant, or he's going to go on and become a doctor, or he's going to go on and become whatever. I genuinely would aspire to having between 8 and 10 sort of income streams, which are bringing, if you could have, for example, 8 or 10 income streams, and each one is bringing you, let's say, £1,500 a month. Let's put a figure on it. Then that's £15,000 a month that you've got coming in, and it's always good to have multiple, like you've said, sources of income. And actually, to build a business that's bringing you in £1,500 a month is not that hard. It just takes doing, and it takes starting.
If you've not done it before, then I guess it is quite hard.
Like you said, you have to have one, because that one is like a springboard which allows you to do
It's
more.
your foundation, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So you've got to have that one, but then there's no harm in having more, or trying new things. But I would always say that the main cash cow, as it's known, the main thing that's giving you're milking it and it's giving you money, don't ruin that to try and start another one. Like you've got to maintain. It's a quite an intricate balance.
There was a popular guy who gave a little bit of he created a bit of a storm online recently. I don't know if you've seen it. Not a storm, but maybe a storm in someone's life. But he basically put out that if you have a 9 to 5,
right,
that is going to restrict you from worshipping Allah, and that's going to restrict you from seeking knowledge. I may have got it a little bit wrong, but the gist of it I think is correct.
okay,
So what he said was, if you can, or you should, leave your job, your 9 to 5. He said leave your job,
right,
and try and start a halal hustle on the side.
right.
And then you can start building your own business and whatnot. I think that was a bit hasty of him to say that, because if everyone leaves their job, you're just going to be the masjid is just going to be full of Muslim bums. No, I'm not bums, but people that are not working. They've not got an income stream coming in. They're going to be on the dole. They're going to be signing on, maybe living with mom and dad. They're not going to be helping anyone. Their deen may be improving, but you have to have this balance, right?
I don't know who it was, so I'm not going to say I listened to this, but I have no idea. I don't get involved in these kind of things, so I think that's very immature advice, and that's quite short-sighted, like you've said. Not everyone is business-minded. We've got to get this clear as well. Everyone is not cut out for business. Business involves taking risks, and some people are just risk averse. They're not willing to take risks. Sometimes at work there's some stock that's become available, and we're looking at a spreadsheet together. Once you click that button and you invest X amount of tens and tens of thousands of pounds, you might not get that money back, right? There's a risk involved there, right? There's a risk involved. Business is risky, and if you're going to employ other people, you go to sleep at night thinking, well, that man is feeding his family from the money that I'm paying him, and you're thinking, right, well, on this ship that I'm steering, and there's icebergs everywhere, on this ship that I've got the wheel of, there's all of us and all of our families and all of our employees and all of their families, and that's a heavy burden for a person to carry, and you've got to have strong shoulders to be able to take that, right? Not everyone is able to do that. And so just to give this blanket statement, well, everybody should leave their jobs. You're going to get the man who is business minded, but now's not the right time. He doesn't have the money. What's he going to do? What kind of halal hustle is he going to do? You're going to have the man who he is not business minded, full stop. What the hell's he going to do? You're going to have the man who doesn't have a lot of skills, or he's quite a timid person, and what's he going to do? Right? So out of 1,000 people or out of 100 people, you might have 10 people who will benefit from this advice, but 90 people might find it very, very difficult. You might ruin their lives, right? And we're living in a time where it's hard to get a job, it's hard to keep a job, and you've just advised your people to leave your job and get a halal hustle without giving any sort of pointers and whatever, and actually going to that point that having a 9 to 5 means that you can't worship Allah. This is utter tripe, utter rubbish.
Maybe he didn't say you can't worship Allah, but it's going to affect your deen, your ability to seek knowledge.
Yeah, it is, but not everybody is obligated to seek knowledge and become a student of knowledge. You've got that man who's a taxi driver. He goes out in the morning at 6 a.m. He comes home at 6 p.m. He gets home, he's prayed all of his salahs, whatever. He gets home at night. He spends half an hour, 45 minutes with his children. He eats. He prays Salatul Isha. When do you want this man to seek knowledge? Allah will not task this man with becoming a sheikh or an alim. Do you see what I mean? Not everybody has their own level. You have to do what's at your level, and so that's the problem. See,
and that man that you mentioned, he gave the example of, he's putting food on the table for his family.
Exactly.
He leaves that job, then what's left?
Exactly. That person who's got a 9 to 5, he's working in Aldi or he's working in a supermarket, for example, right?
It's a good job.
He's stacking shelves, or he's a delivery driver, or whatever he's doing, right? He's doing that in order to keep the lights on, and in order to keep the heating on by the permission of Allah. You tell him to leave. Do you know that the vast majority of people in this country are one paycheck away from poverty?
It's crazy.
If they don't get that one check at the end of the month, or they don't get that money into their account at the end of the month, they don't have enough savings to pay for the following month. And so and like I said, I don't know what this person said, but if he has said what you're saying, I think it's immature and it's short-sighted, and it's going to cause a lot of problems for a lot of people. And then, you know what the flip side is? Our sisters complain that Muslim men are bums. They complain that, I'm looking to get married, but none of these guys have got any jobs. And it's true. Do you see what I mean? It's true, but
it's a multifaceted issue, isn't it?
There's a lot of strands. I don't think
I think the happy medium would be, look, do your 9 to 5. Then you've got from the hours of 5 till 12 to work on your new business venture.
A young brother approached me. Sorry to cut you off.
That's right.
A young brother approached me.
My point is made.
And he wanted to, and it just actually demonstrates your point. He wanted to start a business, selling a few things online, social media, whatever, and he needed money for stock. And he came to me and said, what should I do? I don't have money for stock. I'm looking for investors, blah, blah, blah. I said, get a job. Okay, get a 9 to 5 or whatever it might be. Save that money and buy stock and then sell it on. Don't sit at home and hope for money to rain down from the clouds. Get off your backside and actually go and get a job. Do you see what I mean? It's so important that we get this work ethic into our children, into our youngsters, right? And they think, being an entrepreneur is easy. Being an entrepreneur means you're gonna be playing golf and you're gonna have money coming in. I'm sorry, but wherever you got that from, leave that in the fairy tales and understand that the entrepreneurs are the hardest working people we know, right? What about that guy? He's not a Muslim. We went to visit him the other day. And he's telling us, listen, I'm waking up on a Saturday or a Sunday, and I'm putting in sort of 12-hour shifts, 14-hour shifts on a Sunday. People are only seeing my house with the swimming pool, and they're seeing my Ferraris and my Porsches and all of this stuff, and they think this stuff comes easy, but they don't realize the graft that goes in behind it. They don't realize the sacrifice that goes in behind it. These things don't grow themselves.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
it's
absolutely.
and the youth think, oh, I'm just gonna, I'm gonna sit back and I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do this. Come on, guys, wake up. It
Yeah.
takes hard work, it takes failure, it takes learning from that failure, it takes thick skin, it takes being able to deal with pressure. It takes it's hard.
Yeah, yeah. Running a business is not easy.
One of our businesses, when the pandemic hit, it went from 100 to 0 overnight. They shut down everything. We were working with a certain type of establishment. That establishment overnight stopped when and the country came to an close, and that business literally went from a healthy business to 0 overnight. And then we're left in a situation where we've got a crisis management. We've got to come up with alternatives and stuff. This is not easy stuff. We're having meetings at midnight. We're having meetings till 2 a.m., 3 a.m. Right, this is the strategy. This is what we're going to do. We're going to do this. People don't see this. It's not easy. And that's why I'm saying business is not easy. Don't think there's easy money. There's no easy money. Maybe like 20 years ago, you buy it, when the average salary was, let's say, 20,000, and the houses were worth 60,000 or 80,000, you could save up for a few years and you could buy a house. No chance now, because the house prices have shot up and the salary has not even risen, like barely a tiny amount. So it hasn't risen the same amount. We're not living in the same, financial climate that our parents were living in. We can't do that kind of thing anymore.
Yeah. So moving on from business,
Okay.
I see, mashallah, some nice books behind you.
Do they look nice?
They look nice. Look like. But let's just talk about books in general, seeking knowledge, reading. That, I think, reading now has become a dead form of, not media, but just a dead form of anyone passing some time. I don't think people read anymore, and they definitely don't write anymore. Smartphones have put pain to that, and tablets and whatnot. So, what are your thoughts on that?
As for the books over my right shoulder, then they're generally books of hadith. There's some Arabic books there, Fath al-Bari, and other than that, books of hadith and reading those books. Let's talk about reading in general. You're 1000% right that people are reading less and less and less and less. And it was actually a book which brought me to Islam, or the correct understanding of Islam and stuff. At the beginning, I don't know if you remember, but YouTube wasn't really a thing, or it was just where you put pictures of your babies biting each other's fingers and stuff like that, and
Status updates.
and stuff. And YouTube was a small thing, talking sort of 15 years ago kind of thing.
Oh, I was talking about Facebook, sorry.
No, we're talking about sort of on YouTube
Yeah,
and stuff
yeah,
like
yeah,
that, because that's generally where people get their lectures and stuff from. So that media wasn't even around at that time. But reading is you're exercising your mind. And some of us, we exercise our bodies, and we don't exercise our minds. And reading opens your mind. Reading expands your vocabulary. Reading gives you a good understanding, a firm understanding. And genuinely, if you have a person who reads and another person who doesn't, and even teachers will tell you this, that if you have two children of a similar level of intelligence and one of them reads and one of them doesn't, it is clear night as day which one reads. That child will be sharper. That child will have a better grasp of the language. They will have better skills, problem solving. They will be miles ahead of the kid that is not reading. So reading in general is really important. Islamic reading is add another layer on top of that.
So compare that to watching a YouTube video then, because now there's so much content out there. How does that compare? Can't I just watch a YouTube video instead of reading a book?
You know, some people, they say, oh, I learn better through lectures and I learn better through listening and stuff. That's because you probably don't read enough, and your mind is, it's like any body, muscle of the body. If you haven't worked something out for many years, it's going to be weak and you can only do a little bit, and then you're going to have to stop. But then if you keep doing it, you keep exercising it, you get better and better, stronger and stronger, and you're getting more and more, you're lifting more, whatever. The mind is exactly the same. If you don't exercise it, it goes to sleep through reading. That's how you exercise the mind, through reading. If you don't exercise it, it goes to sleep. You won't be able to do much. So reading like 1 or 2 or 5 pages is so much better than a lecture. In general, you find in a lecture, because someone's speaking, there's a lot of explanation going into it, so you don't cover you kind of whiz through topics, and especially in short reminders, there's not really much there. In a book, you can go deep into something
At your own pace.
and it's at your own pace. You can go back if you don't understand it, whatever. Going through a book is generally, the best thing to do. Generally, read it. I mean, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with listening to lectures. They have their place, but reading absolutely must have its place in your routine. So those books are books of hadith. There's books of usul al-hadith, and other than that, and a few a couple of small commentaries on the Quran. I'm also not a fan of just collecting books for the sake of collect. Some people, they collect them and they have thousands of books, and
They just make them look nice.
it looks amazing behind you. But I think that, again, that's a form of like showing off. Oh, look at me, and they spend literally thousands. These books are not cheap. They spend thousands of pounds on there, and it just looks great. But I think that to have a smaller collection and to kind of read them, but that stuff is not stuff that you would
Pick out and
pick
read.
out and just sit there and read and read and read. A lot of it is more reference material when you're researching something. For example, if I'm researching a talk or something and I want to know, right, okay, what's the understanding of that hadith? The internet has made a lot of it redundant, but there's nothing like going through a book, and it really helps.
So, what about just normal reading? Say, if you've got young children, you don't want them reading Harry Potter, of course.
No, you don't want them reading books that are sort of teaching them concepts which are contrary to Islam.
Yeah.
So Islam speaks very strictly and sternly about, and views magic in a very stern way, and how the magician is not somebody to be praised and raised and all that kind of stuff. But then Harry Potter does that very
It's become
thing.
so normal and
Yeah,
so
it's
popular.
so normal.
Forget the kids. The parents are doing it, and they're throwing it onto their kids as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And they think, hey, it's okay.
Can you explain why Harry Potter in and of itself is haram?
So obviously Harry Potter involves magic. Now somebody might say, wow, that's so extreme. It's a fiction book. We know, blah, blah, blah. But even fiction, you need to be teaching your children and giving them life lessons through the lens of Islam. So we have to teach them that, listen, the magician, this is what he does. He ruins people's lives. He, causes divorce between man and his wife, as Allah mentions in the Quran. The magicians of Pharaoh, how they were evil people, but then they believed and they became good people. So when it comes to like Harry Potter and stuff like this, magic is seen as something amazing. It's seen as something which is promoted. Basically, we want our children, when they grow up, when it comes to magic, they're like, hey, this is not a topic that I want to go near as a Muslim. And magic is something which nullifies your Islam, etc. So it's basically, you're not saying to the person, hey, go and burn the books of Harry Potter. We're not going to extremes, but we're saying, hey, we're Muslims, we have a stance on magic, and we don't believe that it's a good thing that we should be teaching our children. We want to teach our children to be good to their neighbors. We want to teach our children stories that have good morals. Stories that have good morals. And inshallah, look, if a story is a made up story and it does have good morals, you're teaching your children about being honest, about not being fraudulent, about being kind, about being fair, just, not bullying. All these things are really good. There's no
I think
harm in that.
parents, any parents watching, you must instill an Islamic identity into your children, because they are being attacked from all angles now, from
1000%.
school, from their friends, from their some of the family members, because they're not may not all be on the same level. As if you're trying to raise your children as Muslims, as good Muslims, they may have cousins, they may have friends that are going to influence them, because at the end of the day, you're on the religion of your friend. Even at that age, you can see that, look, these kids are talking about Harry Potter, they're talking about Barbie and doing X, Y, and Z. Really, it's upon the parents to realize what their kids are watching, control it to a certain extent, and say, look, we don't want my kids watching Harry Potter or Barbie and prancing around like a, anyway. So,
Yeah.
I think instilling an Islamic identity into your children from a young age is so important, because they are going to grow up in this society, and there's so much that is going on now, especially with the LGBT stuff. We'll get into that deeply another day, but it's like you say, it's all part of forming an Islamic identity, isn't it?
100%. And being proud of your Islam. And that's one thing that I would really sort of impress upon the brothers and sisters who are watching, young or old, is be a proud Muslim. Don't be somebody who shies away from your Islam. Don't be somebody who shies away from being Muslim. Don't let anybody ever talk down to you or look down upon you because of your Islam. Stand up for yourself. Stand up for your religion. Be a person who is proud. You are a part of the fastest growing religion, the only religion of truth. You have a religion which is, it makes sense from every single angle. It's been preserved in the Quran. Allah calls the Muslim Ummah the best of nations ever raised up for mankind. The Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam is the best role model. Islam has the answers to the problems of society. So go out and give a good image of Islam, but don't ever let anyone speak down to you on account of your Islam. Ever. Don't ever do that. There's a red line. You can be good to a person, whatever, but if they start speaking down to you based upon your Islam, then gloves come off.
Have a backbone.
Yeah, the gloves come off at that stage.
And like you say, don't be apologetic. If it's time for prayer, my brother, my sister, you pray.
100%.
Wherever you need to pray, you find a quiet space. I remember when we were in China, do you remember?
Yeah.
We prayed in some crazy places, man, like on the side of the road.
We did.
In some random village, on the floor, like just praying. And for them, they must have, we already look like aliens to these people.
100% look like aliens.
Because they are Chinese, and if you know about China, all they know is China.
Yeah.
Very rarely, especially in the places we were.
Exactly.
You weren't in sort of the main cities, you were a bit further out.
In the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. These people haven't seen, they probably, I was going to say they've only seen people who look like us on the media. They probably even haven't seen that.
Yeah,
literally, they don't know that people like this even exist.
They literally are just, it's like a nudge, like, look at them, kind of thing.
Literally like you're an alien. But if it was time to pray.
Yeah,
I mean,
100%.
you have to do it. And even if you're in public anywhere, just find a quiet.
Where did you pray today, in the squash court?
Yeah.
You prayed in a squash court.
Yeah. Had to be done as Maghrib time.
Khalas, that's the bottom line, right?
Just do
wherever you are, you pray. Service stations, that's just a normal thing. You pray in a service station, praying in the airport. It's just normal, right?
Yeah.
Wherever you are, you need to pray.
Don't overthink it.
Some of these people, like you said, they're a bit like shy about their Islam. What people gonna be thinking? Who gives a damn what people think? Like,
are the LGBT, are they now? Are they scared for themselves now? They are speaking up and they're proud. They're loud and proud now.
They are going into school assemblies, and they're talking about stuff which is disgusting.
Yeah.
And they have no shame.
Drag queens being
they're doing stuff which is disgusting.
Yeah.
And they have no shame.
Sodomites.
Sodomites. Yeah, it's sodomy, isn't it? Right? They are sodomites.
Yeah, I love that word.
That word. They are sodomites. Sodomites, right? So they.
Sorry, I've lost your train of thought.
My train of thought. Why are we ashamed when we're doing something amazing, honorable, worshipping Allah. Why are we ashamed when those people are not ashamed of their sodomy? Why are we ashamed of what we're doing?
Absolutely.
Right?
And I don't know why people are scared. Like, is it? They're not going to say anything to you.
Nobody's gonna say
No
anything.
one's gonna. We prayed in the crazy places, and no one said a word. They might be like, "Oh, look at him," but to their friends, you're never gonna hear them. And at the end of the day, you're fulfilling an obligation upon yourself.
And what's gonna happen after you pray? Your iman is going to be raised.
Yeah, of course.
You're gonna be like, you know what? I don't care. I've prayed in this place.
You feel
Don't care
good.
who's watching me.
You're done. Alhamdulillah.
And you pray alhamdulillah, like, and listen, I've been in like central London doing stuff in like in high stuff, and I'm sorry, I need to pray.
Yeah.
Can you give me a room, please? And they'll give you a room.
Yeah, yeah.
They say, oh yeah, of course, like you
Yeah.
know, they'll be like, oh yeah, I'm sorry, you know,
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
and they get a bit flustered. But the bottom line is, they're polite enough to give you a room. They'll give you a quiet room. You know, the lights when you need to go, just let us know, whatever. And when you say to somebody, hey, I've got to say a prayer, or I've got to offer my prayer, do you know, don't say, listen, I got to pray my zohar, you know, like, do it with some decency. Excuse me, it's time for me to offer my prayer. I just need a room, please, or a quiet room for 5 minutes. Could you facilitate that? Bottom line, they can't say no to that.
Yeah. So they're facilitating. They don't say no to anyone now, because
Absolutely.
you can do whatever you want now. There'll be someone somewhere that will say no problem. You
Hey,
do
listen,
that.
you can say, I'm sorry. You can walk into a place and say, listen, I identify as a penguin. Would you mind giving me an ice cube?
Yeah.
You know,
Literally.
like, that's the bottom line.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
at that stage now.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I identify as a lamppost. Can you give me a light bulb, please?
Yeah.
You know, I need to light the street.
And if you say no, you get cancelled on Twitter.
That's it. You get. Well, I'm not on Twitter's
I don't have
disgraceful.
Twitter either.
But you know, if you say no, then you're not accepting, and you're hate speech, hate monger,
misogynist.
all that stuff,
And
all
you're
those
an
lovely
X, Y,
words.
and Z. You're a yeah. I've heard that you're a bit of an anti-feminist.
I'm an anti-feminist.
I've heard this. I've seen this on your Instagram anyway.
Feminism, okay, feminism. They want the role of the men and the women. So they hate men. Firstly, feminists hate men, right? So
Not all women are feminists. So let's just
no,
yeah,
absolutely
some,
not.
some real
Some there are
balanced sisters out
alhamdulillah,
there.
real great sisters,
Alhamdulillah.
right? Not all women are feminists, but feminists themselves, they have a chip on their shoulder where they just hate men, okay? And they want what's called equal outcome, okay?
Why do they hate men? Does this stem from something that's happened in their past?
Maybe somebody,
Someone, a man's
maybe
cheated on them.
maybe you know, maybe she was really ugly when she was at school or something, and she got dumped by her boyfriend. I'm talking about the non-Muslims.
Yeah.
And that has grown her, you know, she's grown up into this, like, this male hating. Maybe her dad treated her mom real bad.
Yeah.
You know,
There's no excuse for that.
no, there's no excuse. That doesn't mean it make it okay to mistreat a woman or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely not. But
That
she has
shouldn't make
had
you
a
hate all men.
negative
Yeah.
male experience,
Yeah.
okay, and as a result of that, she hates all men. Like, it's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
It's ridiculous, and the crazy thing is, they want this freedom, but what they don't realize that they're doing is they're just chaining themselves down to this ideology, which makes them a slave. Look, since the dawn of mankind, okay, men and women have been a partnership. There's been teamwork between them. They've been dealing with the problems in life. They've been dealing with the societal problems, raising children, you know, wars, etc., fighting away animals. They've been dealing with things together.
Fighting away animals.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's an interesting.
You know, if you know, the early people, perhaps they were.
What's she gonna be throwing like?
No, as
Stone
in the man's going out, he's, you know, hunting, he's bringing home the food. The woman is the one that's cooking it, looking after the kids. You know, he's doing his bit and he's providing, and she's doing her bit and she's providing.
You've taken it right back.
And it's a partnership, right? Since
Stone
the
Age.
dawn of time. I don't know, Stone Age, I don't know. I'm not going to talk about ages, but the point is, since Adam and Hawa, since the beginning, it's been a partnership, right? Allah says, Hunna libasul lakum wa antum libasul lahun. Your women, okay, they are a garment for you and you are a garment for them. Now a person says, well, what does a garment do? A garment, number one, keeps you warm. Allah is telling us, you find comfort in them and they find comfort in you. When you're stressed, worried, anxious, etc., the Prophet ﷺ, when he received the first revelation, he didn't say, I hate women. He went down to his wife and ﷺ, and he said to her, Khadija radiallahu anha, cover me, cover me. And he said, I fear for myself. He found contentment in his wife and he found comfort in his wife. Then his wife said, don't worry, Allah will never disgrace you. Allah will never disgrace you. You know, you feed the poor, you're good to the wayfarer, you help the poor and the needy. She then supported her husband. You see, it's a teamwork, right? It wasn't, yeah, go, nah,
Where have you been?
Where have you been?
Why are you cold?
Well, and
What were you doing in
you
that
think
cave?
it's okay
I
for
would've
you
been
men to go out?
Yeah, yeah.
And you know, and I've got to be sat at home. What about my rights? What about I want to go out? No, right? She was a proper woman, radiallahu anha, and she supported her husband. It's teamwork. Okay. Nowadays, these women who are like this, they want to go all in and they want to basically trample over the men, and they think that there is some conspiracy amongst the men to, you know, trample over women, and they're the ones who are the saviors of women. And the crazy thing is, and they want equality of outcome. What does that mean? You know, they when you listen to a feminist, this is what they say. We want equality of outcome. We want there to be, why are certain fields that men dominate? You know, why are the richest people in the world, the vast majority of them are men? Why is that the situation? Well, I'm sorry, but do you want him to stay at home and breastfeed the kids while you go out to work? Do you want him to carry the child for 9 months and go through labor? It doesn't work like that, sweetheart.
And the other side of that coin is the most people in prison are men.
Exactly.
The most people committing suicide are men.
The
Most people
were
living rough on the street are men.
absolutely, and doing the dangerous jobs are men. Right? You know, what amongst a woman, or what amongst these feminists, don't they understand that women have their position in society,
Yeah.
and it's not below men, and men have their position in society, and it's not to control and denigrate women. No, it's a partnership. Right? It's a partnership. And that's why these feminists, you see them, they're always so angry.
Raging feminists.
Raging. Like they are, you always see, I've never seen a calm feminist, right? They're always so angry because
Yeah.
this is an anger fueled ideology.
It's not logical.
They're terrorists.
Sorry.
They're terrorists.
As you can see, my brother is very passionate about this subject.
Because listen, the reason why I'm passionate is because Islam, it gives our women the best position in society. And our women are saying, no, we don't want that position. We want the position of the Western woman. We want the position of the feminist woman. Yeah, but how, like, if a woman walking around naked is her being free, then I'm sorry, but the dogs and the animals are more free than you. They're the freest of the creation because they walk around totally naked. Like if that's how we judge, then the animals are more advanced than we are. The animals have got more rights than we have, but they're just animals. That's what they want to turn us into, our women into, animals who eat, drink, have sex, and reproduce. That's the only in their understanding.
Not even reproduce now.
Not even reproduce. No, you know, it's going to get to a stage where they're going to say, well, why should we carry the babies? Let's you know, test tube babies and all that rubbish.
Yeah.
You know, why should I have to carry them?
You know, the one that gets me now is that I don't want to have kids. I want to focus on my career. My darling. My darling, let me just say, my darling. If you get to 45, 50 years old and you're past your fertile window, your career is not going to stay with you, and it's not going to look after you. It's not going to love you. You're going to be 50, 55, 60 years old. You're going to be alone with a cat. You're going to be lonely. Nothing wrong with having cats, by the way. You're going to be alone. I'm sorry, but if you look at the women of today that have had children, you ask any of them, would you take this child back, and would you rather go and have a career? None of them would say, yes, take the child back. I want a good job. Because that money is not going to do anything for you. That love that you get, it's just a different level of love. Ask any woman who's had a child.
And that's why the majority of billionaires are men, because they can work. They work longer, harder hours, non-stop. That woman, she's gonna have kids. That woman, she, and that's what I don't, see now. We're getting sisters who are 35 and they've put their career first, and then when it gets time to get married, and they're like, "Why is nobody marrying me?" Well, sweetheart, because you're 35. You're an old granny.
Yeah, but
Well,
you're not 35's not an old granny.
You're okay. You're not an old granny, but
You're approaching your expiry date. Yeah.
Your window, not your expiry date, brother. Come on, you can't use
No,
language
I'm
like
fertile
that.
expiry date. I'm talking
Your shelf life of what you
Shelf life.
of what you
Hardly
have
much better
of
than
what
that.
you have available, or your window to have
You're a
children.
misogynist.
I'm not a misogynist.
you are.
I'm simply saying that
You're a misogynist.
the way that
You call
Allah
them terrorists.
the feminists, okay, the way that Allah has created us, okay, the woman is fertile up to a certain period, okay. You tell me which man is going to say, you know what, I don't want to marry a 22, 23, 24-year-old, 25-year-old and have children with her, etc. So by the time my children are 15, my wife will be, let's say, 40. Okay? If you marry one of these older,
There's no problem with having kids at this age, though, is there?
No, there's nothing
We're
wrong.
talking about getting married specifically,
I'm
your first child.
I'm specifically talking about women who refuse to get married because they put their career first.
You have to make this clear.
I'm not talking about sisters who have looked for marriage, or sisters who put, there's extenuating circumstances. I mean, I'm not talking about those sisters. I am specifically addressing those women who put their career first, and then when they get to 35 and nobody wants to marry them because they're almost on a walking stick, then they turn around and they put the hate on men. And they say, "Oh, men are so shallow. Men are like this." I'm sorry, sweetheart. Nobody wants to marry you because you put your career first. Go and marry your job. Go and have a kid with your job. And when you realize that your job can't give you a child, now don't blame men, because men have the right, the God-given right, should we say, to choose a woman who they want. Right? And so they're going to get married to, naturally, they're going to get married to the younger, more beautiful, more woman who has more time on her hands. They're going to choose that naturally. That's not them being misogynistic.
It's the only logical. Maybe it's not a God-given right. It's the only logical.
No, a man has the right from Allah to marry any woman that he wants.
Yeah, of course.
Nobody can say to a man, "You are 30, you've got to marry somebody your age." If that man who is 30 can marry somebody who's 22, 23, 24, you tell me, why is he going to say, "No, I would rather marry a 35-year-old feminist"? No man in his right mind.
I would like to give some advice to sisters also.
Okay.
If you're 20, 25, 26, and you're searching for a brother, and a good brother comes along, he prays, he's got good aqidah, he's got good manners, good morals, good etiquettes, but you don't want to compromise on one of those things. Maybe he's not the best looking, or maybe something about him puts you off, this one little thing, and you let him go. Years go by, you're now 30. The same thing happens. A good brother comes along and you don't want to compromise on something. You're never going to find Mr. Perfect, my sister. You now are 35 to 40 years old and you become desperate. And then eventually you have to compromise and you're going to end up with a bum.
You're going to marry the first.
You're going to marry anyone who's going to want to marry you then, because you're desperate.
Because your standards have slipped now to such a
good brother. When you were 25,
yeah.
You see him with a good sister. You could have been that sister.
Absolutely.
They are happy, mashallah, Allahumma barik. They're happy. At the end of the day, you must compromise. Life is about compromise. And being a feminist, you are the best person to speak about feminism. But you must compromise. My point to you is, look for a good brother. And if you're 20, 25, don't make it to 35 and be unmarried and then settle for a bum.
And listen, when it comes to feminists, they want all of the advantages and they don't want any of the disadvantages.
Yeah.
The feminist will say, equal this, equal that, equal that. We say, okay, sweetheart, when we go out, you pay for the food.
Are you going to say sweetheart? It's very undermining.
It's fine. Okay. Oh yeah, but actually, they might see that as they might see that as
you're better than them.
I'm looking at
sweet.
quite a condescending language, perhaps. Yeah. No, but I'm saying to sweetheart.
Sorry, that was a good point that you made.
Okay, fine. Traditionally, I go out with my wife, you'll go out with your wife. There's never in a million years will you let your wife pay. Ever. Perhaps you do, but I don't. Never. No, I'm only
Depends
messing.
where we go.
Never, right? If you go China, right? Never, right?
No, never.
Ever.
The thought doesn't even cross your mind.
It doesn't even cross your mind, right?
Even if your wife is working, even if, not saying as do or don't, if your wife is working and has her own money, you're never gonna say to her pay. Doesn't even cross your
The
mind.
man will never, ever, the real man, the proper man, will never allow his wife to pay. There's a difference if he's massively hard up, he's working, but he's,
The paycheck hasn't come through yet.
whatever.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like there's exceptions to every rule, but we're
Yeah.
talking in general. The proper man who is a gentleman will never let his wife pay, ever. Right? So
If he didn't have the money, he wouldn't go out.
So these women who they want all of the rights. Well, okay, sweetheart, you pay this, you pay this, you pay this, you do this, you do this. Like it's ridiculous. If they had the ability, they'd marry themselves and make themselves pregnant and have their own kids. That's what they do.
They're terrorists. It's a bit harsh.
The worst of them are terrorists.
Yeah.
They are extremists.
Feminism is a disease.
Feminism is
It's a
an illness.
big disease.
We are all for women being treated well. We are all for women having their God-given rights. We are all for women. I heard the other day about a woman who had an abortion, and she said it was the greatest act of self-love. That's what she said. Right? She had an abortion, this abortion law that's going on, and she was talking to Congress or wherever in the States, and she turned around and said, I had an abortion and it was the greatest act of self-love. And that is the epitome of feminism. It's selfishness, it's evil, and it's me, me, me. I will do what is good for me. But ultimately, the irony is it's not good for you. As we've said, you're going to be a 65-year-old woman with, you pat yourself and dust comes off, and you're going to be, wiggling around. You've got no children because you chose work and to go to the club with your girls at, when you were younger and dance around and all of that. And then you got to 40 and you still said, hey, you know what? I'm too good for any man and I'm not going to come under any man and all of that shebang. Now you're 65, your lineage has come to an end. You can't get pregnant now. So you are the last in your lineage. You are the last in your lineage. In your family tree, there's no other lines coming off of you. And you're going to be an old, lonely woman. You're going to die all alone. You're not going to have any children to make dua or cry over you. Forget dua because they don't make dua, but you're going to have nobody to remember you. What kind of existence is that?
If anyone out there is listening and you just mentioned that your lineage ends there and you're not going to have kids at that age, we also must mention the brothers and sisters that are trying to have kids and can't. This doesn't apply to you.
Of course.
We need to make this very clear.
And that's what I want to say to anyone who's listening. Please understand the context and understand that we're talking about a very specific kind of person here, and there's exceptions to every rule. And the problem with online is you'll talk about something and then somebody say, but what about this? But
they'll take it out of context. They'll clip it.
And so you have to understand that there is a context, absolutely everything.
My brothers and sisters, if any of you are going through that particular test, it is a big test for any Muslim living, any person living here in the West. We have safety, we have security, we have food on our tables. This is one of the biggest tests that you will go through because you see. Just remain patient, take the means, try your best, do dua, and inshallah, what is written for you will not miss you. And infertility is something that one day I think we should speak about, or even now. It's massively on the rise.
Yeah, we'll talk about it inshallah in the next podcast.
That's a big thing. I think we should end there because it's getting on now in terms of it's probably well over an hour. I don't know how long it's been, but Jazakallah khair. If you enjoyed, if you want to contribute to the discussion, please do let us know in the comments. We're not going to discuss in the comments, but
we won't get involved. I'm not planning.
We won't get involved in
any
the comments, but
just
let us know what you thought and let us know some topics you want us to discuss going forward. Do share it with your friends and your family if you enjoyed, especially the younger brothers and sisters listening. We'd like to get this message out to the youngsters because I think that they need it more than the elders, but obviously we want to, whoever's listening, inshallah, you may take benefit from it. And if we benefit just one or two of you, then alhamdulillah, our job is done. So with that, jazakallah khair. Inshallah, we'll see you for the next one. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.